We know he wasn't really running the country.
Knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? You know what? If I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. I'd be fine with that.
We used to think he was actually running the country, and now they're like, no, he didn't even see those executive orders. That was all auto-penned.
It's the art of deflection coming from former President Obama, as well as his friends who are still in Congress today, and Senator Warner and Congressman Jim Himes, really all basically saying that exact same statement, which doesn't actually address the issue that was revealed in great detail in the over 100 documents that we released last week, and the documents that we will be releasing later this week that point to the undeniable fact that you laid out in your introduction to this segment, is that the intelligence community had one assessment, that Russia did not have the intent or capability to try to impact the outcome of the U.S. election leading up to Election Day.
He wasn't just a president. He became a cultural moment, a global phenomenon. Barack Obama rose to power on a wave of excitement so powerful it almost felt like a promise finally being fulfilled. He was introduced as the leader who could heal a deeply divided nation, the calm and thoughtful voice who could bring people together with the right words at the right time. The world's media often treated him less like a typical politician and more like a modern symbol of hope, a man whose natural charm seemed strong enough to wash away the mistakes of the past. His public image was carefully shaped, polished to show hope, intelligence, and quiet confidence. But this perfect story that millions quickly believed in was never the full picture. And behind that smooth and shining surface, a far more complicated and troubling reality was slowly beginning to take form.
Ever seen it?
No.
He gets a glass of Flint tap water, and I swear to God, he drinks it like this. Watch this.
Can I get some water? I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Usually when something isn't a stunt, you have to say
It's
that.
100% a stunt. When was the last time a president stopped a speech to ask, can I get a glass of water? They would never do that. They would have water ready for him.
It came during a moment of surprising honesty, a comment so revealing it could have easily made major headlines. When asked whether he ever wished he could serve a third term, Obama laughed and described what his perfect setup might look like. He imagined someone else out on stage as the public face, wearing an earpiece while he quietly ran things from his basement in a pair of sweats. Most people brushed it off as a simple joke, but to some it sounded more like a revealing slip. It didn't feel like just a casual remark. Instead, it felt like a small peek behind the curtain, hinting at a deeper distance from the office itself. The idea of a front person delivering the lines while someone else guided the decisions sparked a lingering question in people's minds. Was the leader we saw simply the performer on stage, while the real influence operated from a comfortable place out of sight?
A lot of what they campaigned on, they don't practice at all. Great example is the Obama administration. The Hope and Change website had to be changed because there was a bunch of stuff in there about whistleblowers.
No, I don't think Mr. Snowden was a patriot. I called for a thorough review of our surveillance operations before Mr. Snowden made these leaks. My preference would have been for a lawful, orderly examination of these laws.
Protecting whistleblowers, which they didn't do at all. There was one of the worst administrations for whistleblowers.
I first joined the Democratic Party over 20 years ago. I was 21 years old, and what I saw back then was a party that still stood for free speech. That was a big open tent party that welcomed people with different ideas, different backgrounds, different religions, that stood up for civil liberties, that fought for everyday Americans. It was a party of the little guy. Fast forward to where we are today, that party is completely unrecognizable.
The first real test of his message of hope and change didn't come for everyday people, but for the powerful. When the financial crisis of 2008 was shaking the country, Main Street was falling apart. Families were losing their homes, their savings, and their sense of security. Many Americans looked to their new president, expecting strong action against the people they believed had caused the crisis. Instead, Obama's administration moved forward with the Wall Street bailout, sending massive amounts of taxpayer money to the same banks that had taken huge risks with the economy. To many observers, the message felt clear. The biggest financial institutions were considered too important to fail, while ordinary Americans were left to struggle through the fallout. For critics, the leader who had promised to stand with the common person now seemed to be protecting the very system people blamed for the collapse.
I left the Democratic Party because it is led by an elitist cabal of woke warmongers. They are driven by an insatiable greed for power, and they are willing to do whatever they deem is necessary, even the destruction of our freedom, to get what they want and to stay in power. This is the challenge and the threat.
While many Wall Street executives were still collecting large bonuses, some even funded by bailout money, not a single high-level banker was criminally prosecuted for the actions that helped lead to the financial collapse. Obama's administration chose a cautious path, focusing on stabilizing the financial system rather than pursuing aggressive legal action or major structural reforms. To critics, that choice created the sense of a two-tier system of justice in America, one for powerful insiders connected to major financial institutions, and another for ordinary citizens struggling with foreclosures, lost jobs, and financial ruin. The leader who had spoken so passionately about shared sacrifice now seemed to be overseeing a situation where the heaviest burdens were carried by those with the least power. For many observers, the disappointment was profound, and it felt like only the beginning of a much larger debate about fairness and accountability.
Watch Tulsi Gabbard explain what most Americans are thinking.
Vast majority of the Democrat elite in Washington, in politics and the media, still can't figure out why President Trump has the support that he has, and that no matter what they're throwing at him, it continues to grow, which just is a reflection of how completely out of touch they are with the people. They continue, as they did in 2016, they continue to see the American people as stupid.
He promised to lead the most transparent administration in history. It was a bold and inspiring pledge, one he repeated again and again on the campaign trail. Obama spoke about opening the doors of government, letting sunlight shine on decisions and actions, and protecting whistleblowers who stepped forward to expose corruption or waste. He described the future where the public could finally see how their government truly worked behind the scenes. This vision of openness became a central part of his message and helped convince millions of people that he was different from the politicians who came before him. But as time went on, many critics began to argue that this promise would turn into one of the most debated and controversial parts of his presidency.
I think the best people age the hardest. I think Obama was probably like a very idealistic young man.
Oh, Lord, what's going on now? Who's hollering? I can't even see it.
Who really wanted to change the world. And that dude aged more than anybody.
I mean, I'm getting old, so I can't hear that well. I can't see that good.
Who aged the least? Trump just
This is something that
he just brushed that shit off his shoulders like it was nothing.
Behind all the talk about transparency, critics argued that a very different story was unfolding. The administration took a tough stance against government leaks, and the Department of Justice used the Espionage Act, an old law originally created to punish spies, to pursue several high-profile whistleblower cases. In fact, more cases related to leaks were brought during those years than in many previous administrations combined. Figures like Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, who revealed large amounts of classified information about surveillance programs and military operations, became the center of intense global debate. Supporters saw them as whistleblowers exposing important truths, while the government labeled their actions as serious violations of national security. Their cases sparked strong reactions from civil liberties groups around the world, who questioned whether the promise of openness had given way to a far stricter response toward those who expose government secrets.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though...
Remember when they gave that speech, when he gave a speech on television, and everybody was like, this. Mm-hmm. And then they were, it kind of just went away.
It was one of the most beautiful moments in modern American history. People really actually stood up and stopped a war from happening.
The information Edward Snowden revealed shocked people around the world. The documents suggested that under Obama's administration, the National Security Agency, or NSA, had developed surveillance programs far larger than many had imagined. One of the most widely discussed programs, known as PRISM, involved the collection of digital data such as phone records, emails, and online activity connected to millions of users. The revelations sparked a huge debate about privacy, security, and the balance between protecting the country and protecting civil liberties. Critics argued that these programs allowed the government to monitor citizens in ways that felt deeply intrusive, while officials defended them as necessary tools to prevent threats and keep the nation safe. The controversy raised serious questions about how much surveillance a democracy should allow, and whether the systems meant to protect freedom could also risk limiting the very privacy they were meant to defend.
Obama said he was a jackass.
The young lady seems like a perfectly nice person. She's getting her award. What's he doing up there? He's a jack.
It's like, oh, really? Well, you.
It was about the Taylor Swift thing.
Now, all this stuff.
That guy's a jack. It wasn't even that harsh of an incident. And he said it privately, and I think somebody heard it. I don't think he said it to be public.
I'm assuming all this stuff. Where's the pool? Come on, guys.
In 2009, in a decision that surprised many people around the world, Barack Obama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. At that point, he had been president for less than a year. Even he admitted during his speech that he was only at the beginning of his work and still had much to accomplish. The prize was largely seen as recognition of the hope and expectations his leadership had inspired across the globe. But that early optimism would soon face the difficult realities of global politics and security challenges. As his presidency continued, Obama would make a number of major military and foreign policy decisions, many of them carried out through modern strategies that allowed operations to be directed from a distance, sparking ongoing debates about leadership, responsibility, and the true meaning of peace in a complex world.
These terrible things that are happening in our country are happening because we have people in power who care more about themselves and their power than they do about the people, this country, our constitution, our democracy. They are setting this incredibly dangerous precedent that now, much like many banana republics in the world, whoever's in power has the ability to politicize and weaponize that power to go after their political opponent. Take away whatever people think about Trump or whatever.
Right.
The consequences and implications of what is actually happening and what so many of the Democrat elite are justifying in the name of protecting democracy is actually destroying.
The Obama administration greatly expanded the use of drone strikes, turning them into a central part of its counterterrorism strategy. Reports described regular national security meetings where officials reviewed intelligence and discussed potential targets connected to militant groups. Through these operations, the United States carried out drone strikes in several regions, including parts of the Middle East and Africa. Supporters argued that drones allowed the government to target dangerous threats while reducing the need for large military deployments. Critics, however, raised serious concerns about transparency, civilian casualties, and the legal authority behind such decisions. In some cases, strikes based on uncertain intelligence reportedly led to the deaths of civilians, which fueled global debate about the ethics of remote warfare. The situation created a powerful contrast that many observers pointed out. The same president who had received the Nobel Peace Prize early in his term was now overseeing one of the most extensive drone programs in modern history.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. Barack Hussein Obama, have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of.
No single event showed the difficult consequences of his foreign policy more clearly than the 2011 intervention in Libya. Barack Obama supported a NATO-backed campaign aimed at removing the longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi. At the time, the mission was presented as a humanitarian effort meant to protect civilians during a violent uprising. But what followed became one of the most debated outcomes of the Arab Spring. After Gaddafi was removed from power, Libya struggled to maintain stability and eventually slipped into years of conflict between rival groups and militias. The country's institutions weakened, and the region saw rising violence, arms trafficking, and widespread disorder. Reports later revealed disturbing human rights abuses, including the emergence of slave markets in parts of the country. What was intended as an effort to prevent suffering ended up leaving Libya in chaos, sparking lasting debate about the true impact of the intervention.
Obama went on stage and he roasted Trump.
Donald Trump is here tonight.
And one of the lines he said to Trump, he said, "I'm one thing that you'll never be," which is the president of the United States.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
and you could see Trump in his head going, okay, I'm going to run now. That one moment
Yeah.
where Obama was talking shit to him might be the reason why Trump was like, I'll f***ing show you.
Behind the applause and glowing headlines, a different story began to take shape. For critics, Barack Obama's legacy wasn't only about hope, but about how that hope became a powerful political brand. The speeches were inspiring and the image was polished, but many people felt the deeper problems in the system never truly changed. Even after leaving office, the spotlight stayed on him through books, speeches, and media projects, keeping the debate alive. Voices like Tulsi Gabbard and podcast host Joe Rogan have often questioned whether the promises of that era matched the results. In the end, supporters still see Obama as a historic leader, while critics see a presidency where powerful messaging sometimes overshadowed real change.